The Astartes is the Imperium's greatest warriors, but within the vast ranks of the Space Marines, there still exist elite units that stand apart as the most skilled, courageous, and specialized warriors within the already genetically enhanced super soldiers. Understanding their unique roles and tactics is essential, as each unit brings unparalleled strengths that can turn the tides of war and offers invaluable insight into the true might and strategic depth of the Emperor's finest. So in today's deep dive, we're going to take a look at a couple different chapters and their most elite units, starting off with the Raven Guard. Within the ancient data slates and history scrolls of the Raven Guard Space Marine chapter, there exists a long-forgotten cadre of warriors that fought alongside the Primarch Corvus Corax even before his discovery by the Emperor of Mankind over 10,000 years ago. This small but highly skilled squad of legionnaires were expert infiltrators that dramatically improved the odds of victory long before the main force made contact with the enemy. They were known as the Morlocks. The creation of the Morlocks can be traced back to a time when the Primarch Corvus Corax arrived on the moon of Lycaeus. This moon served as the primary source of minerals and raw resources for the forge world of Kaivar. When the Primarch crash landed on Lycaeus, it was ruled over by the Mechanicum tech guilds of the forge world. Under their iron watch, they sent heavily armored guards to oversee the enslaved inhabitants of the moon. This included criminals, political opponents, and workers who had failed to meet their quotas. This enslaved population was the first to discover the pale-skinned Primarch. Recognizing his power, they hid him from the overseers and quickly began to train him in the various skills they believed a leader and a warrior would need. Named Corvus Corax, which means the deliverer in the Khaivarian tongue, the Primarch witnessed the brutality of the tech masters as they benefited from the pain and suffering of the political slaves of Lycaeus. Educated to be a leader of men as well as a rebel guerrilla, Corax began his task of liberating his adopted community by organizing the Lycaean workers into fighting teams. These units fought small-scale and fast-moving skirmishes all across the moon against the dreaded overseers. Fearing the whip of the tech masters, few of these tiny battles were reported, a foolish action that only helped Corax and his guerrilla warriors slowly cripple the large and more powerful police force. During the conflict, the Primarch promoted the best warriors to squad leaders. From these veteran warriors, the first Morlocks were formed. They followed Corax during the Shadow Crusades to free the moon of Lycaeus from the rule of the Kavaran tech masters. Corax fought a hard and bloody guerrilla war against these tyrants, and afterwards, when the Emperor came to the newly renamed Moon of Deliverance, those young enough to withstand the augmentations became the first Space Marines of the 19th Legion. The title of Morlocks continued as the first Deliverance-born Astartes joined the ranks of the Great Crusade. This elite cadre of warriors continued to fight right alongside their Primarch, but now they were enhanced with the godlike powers of a Space Marine. And through a genetic quirk of their gene seed, these Morlocks developed the same unique ability as their Primarch, allowing them to shadow walk. These battle brothers could move without being seen by other sentient beings. Even when directly in line of sight of an enemy, by willing an observer not to see them, they somehow avoided detection. By using this uncanny ability, these Space Marines became expert infiltrators, moving about unseen and slaughtering the enemy. The only true method of detection was readings from an Auspex device. Corax then utilized his formidable knowledge of stealth and sabotage to the fullest extent, training these specially selected legionnaires to be called upon to perform highly dangerous reconnaissance and guerrilla missions deep behind enemy lines. Nicknamed Shadow Masters, this elite unit was not known even amongst the members of his own legion. Only the Primarch himself and a selected group of legion apothecaries were aware of the Morlocks at the time of the Horus Heresy. Oftentimes, Corax would call upon the Morlocks to further their goals and objective against a very secure enemy. By the time of the Dropsite Massacre of Isfahan V, the Morlocks were few in number, having fought countless campaigns over 8 standard decades at their master's side, and they rarely admitted new recruits into their ranks. During this time, many of their numbers were too spread out across the galaxy, performing their own missions when the deadly events of Isfahan V transpired. After carrying out countless missions on behalf of their Primarch, attrition began to take a serious toll on their numbers. Most who remained were grizzled veterans, supremely confident in their abilities. They were adept at moving silent and unseen through the shadows and attacking as and where they willed. They utilized a range of weapons and specialized equipment, like sniper rifles, shotguns, combi weapons, Volkite chargers, flamers, meltaguns, and they even donned artificer armor. But the most common weapon utilized by the Morlocks were the chainsword and the bolt pistol. These acted as their most trusted and primary weapons, and although simple, they were 10 times deadlier when in the hands of these most elite Raven Guard veterans. Another incredibly unique battlefield tool developed by the Mordythan was the creation of a battle cant called Stock Argot. It consisted of a series of sighs and whispers that were indistinguishable from wind and other environmental sounds. Not only was it undetectable by the enemy, but it was incredibly adaptable to almost any environment. These warriors were true masters of stealth and reconnaissance. The few dozen Mordythan that were left alive continued to fight on against the treacheries of the War Master Horus and his traitor legions until the last of their numbers finally fell in the service of the Emperor. It is not known if the Mordythan still exist as part of the Raven Guard chapter in the current millennia. There are whispers and rumors of successor chapters of the Raven Guard that are attempting to revive this elite cadre of warriors. With the introduction of the Primaris Marines and the new gene seed organs being utilized by the Sons of Corvus Corax, there may be a chance of not only reforging the unit, but also manipulating the genetic quirks of the Primaris to possess the ability to shadow walk. Now let's take a look at the Iron Hands chapter and their most elite unit. Within the ranks of the Iron Hands and their successor chapters is a brotherhood of veteran space marines that make up an ancient caste known as the Morlocks. These elite veterans served as the personal honor guard of Varus Manus during the Great Crusade, and since then, many honor guard units within the Iron Hands and their successor chapters have taken on the name of the Morlocks. To become part of this elite cadre of warriors, an Iron Hands battle brother must prove that he is the deadliest and most experienced warrior of his chapter. His skills at arms must allow him not only to fulfill the role of protecting his chapter master, but also carry the sacred battle standard. Armed with the chapter's holiest master-crafted weapons and their most ancient and venerated artificer armor, the Morlocks are meant to inspire their chapter through their highly courageous deeds in battle. For centuries, the Morlocks have been the bloody tip of the spear that drives hard into the Iron Hands' enemies. This rank has been duplicated throughout multiple successor chapters because of its incredible efficiency and its vengeful lineage it carries. The sense of honor and duty that a battle brother holds for a rank that stretches back to when the Primarch battled alongside his legion is impossible to explain. Even the name, Morlocks, harkens back to the Primarch's homeworld of Medusa, where the vicious and vengeful predator, known as the Morlocks, stalk the land, their howls sending chills down the spines of the planet's inhabitants, much like the Morlocks strike fear into the enemies of mankind. Every Morlock that marches into battle in the 42nd millennium does so with a fire of vengeance against the enemies of the Iron Hands. The tragedy of the Dropsite Massacre and the extermination of an entire ancient Morlock caste leaves a massive hunger for retribution against the traitorous Astartes. During the Great Crusade, as the personal honor guard of Varus Manus, the Morlocks often stood sentinel aboard the Primarch's flagship, the battle barge Fist of Iron, the mightiest of them protecting the gates of the Primarch's inner sanctum, the Iron Forge, located within the ship's anvilarium, the large audience chamber where mighty deeds were planned and unbreakable bonds of brotherhood were forged. The Morlocks were led by Gabriel Santor, the 10th Legion's first captain and equerry to the Primarch. Santor hailed from the Averni clan on Medusa, as did all of the members of the Morlocks. The Morlocks stood by the side of Varus Manus during most of his battles. Many of these warriors were highly enhanced with iron bionics, raising their strength and endurance far beyond that of an average space marine. They slaughtered thousands of orcs during the Olenor campaign, and fought valiantly during the persecution of the ancient human empire of the Diasporax. Check out our 40 facts on the Diasporax if you want to learn more about them. During these battles is where they formed a strong bond with the Astartes of the 3rd Legion, the Emperor's children. The Morlocks grew to appreciate the Emperor's children's pursuit of perfection. However, the Morlocks valued augmented power over organic strength, and would often mock or look down upon the Emperor's children's faith in their flesh. Tragically, after the corruption of the Emperor's children's Primarch, Fulgrim, his 3rd Legion was ordered by the War Master Horus to rendezvous with the Iron Hands Primarch and attempt to sway Varus Manus, Fulgrim's closest friend amongst the Primarchs, toward the cause of the traitors. The two Primarchs met aboard Varus Manus' flagship. Great bonds of friendship and brotherhood had long existed between them, and Fulgrim felt that he could convince Varus of the righteousness of Horus's cause. Fulgrim's hope proved disastrously wrong. The meeting quickly ended in violence, as the Gorgon made his difference of opinion known to the Phoenician with his weapons. Varus was determined to stop Fulgrim's betrayal of the Imperium before it could even begin. Varus used his silvery necrodermis hand to attempt to destroy Fulgrim's sword, Fireblade, but the resulting explosion knocked him out. Fulgrim intended to kill his brother with his own weapon, the Warhammer Forgebreaker, but proved unable to kill his oldest friend despite the prompting of the Slaneshi demon that now throttled his soul. Instead, he took the Gorgon's beloved Warhammer, a reminder of the bond that the two Primarchs once shared. When Fulgrim emerged from Ferris' inner sanctum, he gave a signal to his Phoenix Guard, who instantly, and in perfect synchrony, beheaded all 10 of the Iron Hand's Morlocks, who served as Ferris Manus' bodyguards. Fulgrim successfully fled the Iron Hand's expeditionary fleet with his own personal assault craft, the Firebird. Things eventually came to a head on Isfan V. Led by the first captain, Gabriel Santor, 10 full companies of Morlocks hungered to confront the Emperor's children and make them pay for the dishonorable murders done to them in the Anvilarium of the Fist of Iron. The Morlock Terminators, led by the Gorgon, formed the center of the Loyalist assault as the Primarch of the 10th Legion sought out his fallen brother Fulgrim. Finally, the forces of the Emperor's children and the Morlocks came together in a riot of bloodshed and death. The Morlock's superior armor and experience gave them an advantage over the rank-and-file Astartes of the Emperor's children, but they were greatly outnumbered. While Ferris Manus and Fulgrim clashed in a final confrontation, the traitors revealed their trap, as the second wave of Loyalist assaults, composed of the Alpha Legion, the Iron Warriors, the Night Lords, and the Wordbearers, revealed their true allegiance to chaos. Fulgrim's own honor guard, the Phoenix Guard, answered with a terrible war cry and leapt to meet the Morlocks in a searing clash of blades. Electric fire leapt from the golden edges of the power halberds and the lightning claws of the warriors, in a storm of light and sound flares from each life and death struggle. Now surrounded on all sides by the traitors, after the second wave had revealed its treachery, the Morlocks were encircled by the traitors, and in the midst of the cries of pain and roaring savage glee, the Morlocks of Ferris Manus were reported to be slain to a man. The truth was that a few of the Morlocks managed to survive the killing grounds of the Urgal Depression and joined various groups of Loyalist survivors, later referred to as Black Shields, in the hopes of getting vengeance for the death of their Primarch. Others rendezvoused with the remainder of the Iron Hands and continued the best they could in the defense of the Imperium. From these few survivors, the knowledge of the mythology of combat and the heritage of the Morlocks was passed down.
Now let's take a look at the White Scars and their most elite unit.
Within the ranks of the deadly White Scars and their successor chapters is an elite force of Terminator-clad champions that serve as protectors and defenders of the 5th Legion's honorable memory. The White Scars' honor guard is known as the Keshig. This elite military force can trace back its origin to the ancient feudal world and home planet of the White Scars, Chagoris. Before the Primarch, Jagatai Khan, even knew of the existence of the Imperium of Man, the Keshig had been his valiant protectors, and the warriors he trusted most to lead the forces of the Great Khan. When the Primarch reached adulthood, he set off on a mission to unite the fragmented tribes of his homeworld. Across the plains of Chagoris, the Primarch approached each settlement and roving tribe with 2 simple options: subjugation or death. Although many of the tribes of Chagoris resisted and paid the price, those leaders that submitted freely and with honor were chosen to fight at the Great Khan's side. These became the first Keshig. The wise Primarch surrounded himself with these men and women of talent from across the plains. He promoted based on ability and loyalty, as opposed to the common practice of bloodlines and old rivalries. Within the span of a few short solar decades, the nomadic tribes were unified under his control, and the Primarch became the Khan of Khans. After Jagatai Khan was reunited with the Emperor of Mankind and was given over command of his White Scars Legion, the Keshig that fought by his side during the unification of Chogoris underwent the process of becoming Space Marines. These warriors turned out to be the 5th Legion's most capable soldiers. They were described as a whole phalanx of giants in bone-white Terminator plate. The Primarch decided that this elite force would not only serve him personally during combat, but also be dispersed throughout the various companies of the Legion. Jagatai Khan trusted these warriors to spread his teachings and to lead by example, to stand as champions amongst the 5th Legion as it went to war amongst the stars. The first Chagorian-born Keshig inducted into the Adeptus Astartes was Quinza. This intelligent and honorable warrior was the Great Khan's most trusted advisor and oldest friend, having fought alongside the Primarch during his youth. His martial prowess was so great that Quinza was given command of the Keshig during the unification of the Primarch's homeworld. After his Primarch was reunited with the 5th Legion and the Emperor, Quinza was frequently described by his Primarch as one of the most formidable warriors of the Legion, having mastered the art of the hunt at a young age and bringing such skills to bear by the Primarch's side during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. Though few outside of the Legion spoke of Quinzal's prowess, it was often described within the records of the Legion that he took to the battlefield as a force of nature with the fury and strength behind his aggression that, while apparently barbaric, was tempered by a keen intelligence and innate sense of the ebb and flow of battle. Though known for his absolute loyalty to his master, Quinzal often questioned the decisions of the Great Khan and actively encouraged those within the Keshig to question him too, to ensure that they never became followers with blind faith. Quinza was one of the first few White Scars to actively prefer Terminator armor, which allowed him to wield the Tails of the Dragon, 2 Dao-style power swords with great skills and power. 2 Terran years after the start of the Horus Heresy, Quinza fought the traitors at Persimar, winning a great victory and reclaiming control of the world. 4 years after the start of the Horus Heresy, Quinza was part of the raid on Callium, where he fought Lord Commander Eidolon of the Emperor's Children Legion at the Callium Gate. Quinza was rescued from near-certain death during that battle. He was returned to the White Scar's battleship, Lance of Heaven, to be treated for his critical wounds. Unfortunately, Quinza proved to be mortally injured. At his deathbed, he expressed his fear that Jagatai would blame himself for the failures of the raid. He was assured that the White Scars would be given a path to return to Terra, using the Dark Glass artifact, and that his sacrifice would lead to the ultimate victory of the Loyalist. Quinza died soon after from his wounds. Command of the Keshig would fall on the shoulders of Nemahi, who served as a deputy during Quinzal's life. During this era in the Legion's history, the Keshig became an elite reserve intended to bolster both the fighting spirits of the hordes of the White Scars and any specialist tactical role. For example, there were the Keshig that fought in the specialist horde known as the Karash, which was a temporary assembled shock assault force that broke many of the Legion's established doctrines in order to eliminate extreme threats. These Keshig became known as the Ebon Keshig. The Ebon Keshig were the physical representation of atonement and redemption for the sins of the Karash horde and their breach of honor. Clad in black Terminator armor, the legionnaires that made up this formation were typically deployed as the spearhead of a siege or another highly intense conflict, where they were expected to use their heavy armor as a shield for others. In doing so, they atoned for their perceived sins through not only martial glory, but also the protection of their brethren. This force became a way for the entire White Scars Legion to seek atonement for their transgressions. Those legionnaires who survived their service within the Ebon Keshig were deemed to have proven themselves worthy in the eyes of the White Scars, and often returned to their previous post, or sometimes other roles that fit these new skills. And then there was the Golden Keshig, which was made up of the elite riders of the Legion. Acting as the spear tip of what the legionnaires of Chogoris called the Zao, a piercing attack at the heart of the enemy, adapted from the horse tribes of the Primarch's homeworld. The Golden Keshig used heavy assault jetbike squads to encircle the enemy in a purposefully confusing formation, before focusing momentum into a single strike through the center of the enemy formation. Strikes such as these typically served to disrupt the front lines of the enemy's advance and sowed confusion throughout the ranks. The sheer terror caused by the Golden Keshig led to them being referred to on various worlds as the Storm Ghost or the Sky Beast Tamers. The maneuverability of the Golden Keshig afforded them the means to draw the foe into positions of weakness or force them towards open battlefield, in which no cover was available to save them from the furious onslaught of the White Scars Legion. The tradition of the Keshig would continue after the Horus Heresy and survive the Second Founding, when the White Scars Legion was split apart into chapters. Many Keshig leaders became the chapter masters of these successor chapters and formed their own Keshigs as the vanguard of their armies. Although the term Keshig is now only recognized by the sons of the Great Khan, the role is still filled by champions that have proven themselves in battles 1,000 times over. They serve not only as bodyguards to their chapter master, but also as advisors and executors of their orders. Because of their unique and honorable role, some rare Keshig still don the Tartaros pattern tactical dreadnought armor, a relic from the Great Crusade. It is perhaps the most advanced form of Terminator armor ever designed. The Tartaros pattern shares many systems with the Mark IV Maxim pattern of power armor, and provides an incredible range of movement for its wearer compared to the Indomitus pattern, with no loss in durability or protection. Of the shared characteristics between the Tartaros and the Maxim pattern power armor, the most obvious is the helmet, though there are other ones that are more subtle, such as the design of the armor on the back of the Tartaros' legs, or the vambrans and gauntlets. The Tartaros pattern also seems to share design characteristics with the Contemptor Dreadnought, more specifically in the design of the torso plates, and there are characteristics inherited or derived from the venerable Cataphractii pattern Terminator armor, the pauldrons being the most obvious. The Keshig have been able to master the savagery of their ancient past, not as a mindless berserker, but as a finely crafted hunting spear, delivered with the focused precision of a master predator. They specialize in hitting their enemies with a peerless impact at frightening speed, but they are never reckless.
We're going to take a break from first founding chapters and take a look at the Black Templars and their most elite unit.
The Black Templars are the best known example of a crusading chapter. When the Black Maltese Cross is spotted, the enemies of the Imperium have learned to brace themselves for bloody retribution. Few chapters can match the ferociousness displayed by these Astartes, and within the ranks of the Black Templars, none are as deadly as the Sword Brethren. The Sword Brethren make up the fighting center of a Crusade's commanding marshal's household, or a command squad, similar to a veteran squad in a Codex-compliant chapter. In order to earn a place as a Sword Brethren, the Astarte must truly be a battle-hardened warrior. These Battle Brothers are superb swordsmen, able to hack an orc knob in two with a single swing of their power sword. Each one is capable of single-handedly slicing their way through rank after rank of traitor guardsmen, or any infantry the enemy can throw at them. With their melee weapons chained to their armor, these warriors will continue to fight until the last witch, heretic, or Xeno scum is dead. Sword Brethren are seen as blessed by the God Emperor. While all Black Templars devote themselves to the worship of the Emperor, it is a Sword Brother that is spiritually closest to the Savior of mankind. Not only are their purity seals in armor decorated with holy scriptures, but many of them charge into battle, chanting prayers and litanies of his divinity. Their fervor is a testament to his divine rule over the galaxy and his sacrifice to humanity. Because of this, a Sword Brethren takes great pleasure in judging those that turn their back from the Emperor and detest the witch in all of its forms. Many Sword Brethren keep tallies on their weapons, chains, or armor of the number of psychers butchered by their sword. This combination of zealous rage and cold determination makes the Sword Brethren unlike any warrior of mankind. They truly are peerless in their resolve to face the enemies of the Emperor. These warriors have proven themselves under countless alien suns and faced a variety of enemies on every battlefield imaginable. Through long years of battle and bloodshed, they have acquired a wealth of combat experience and possess an ambition to strive for martial perfection, exterminating foes as only a veteran can accomplish. They have become legends within the Black Templars chapter. Each one of their deeds has been told in countless gathering halls and become part of the chapter's long and illustrious history. The mere presence of these wise and potent warriors strengthens the resolve of the entire Imperial force. The initiates and neophytes fighting with all the more zeal, knowing that the companions of the High Marshal himself are looking on. In battle, the Sword Brethren lead assaults or form immovable living bulwarks against anything the enemy can throw at them. They fight with a controlled yet fiery ambition, born of centuries of experience. Clad in the finest suits of power armor available to the chapter, and bedecked with Crusader seals, the Sword Brethren are the very image of a Baroque warrior knight of ancient Terran legend. These hardened Astartes receive additional training, particularly in the use of the rare Terminator armor, and no longer are responsible for training the neophytes, as is common in this chapter. All Space Marine chapters maintain a number of these revered suits of ancient power armor. Each suit is a priceless chapter relic created by master artificers in ages past, and given the scattered nature of the Black Templars chapter, very hard to replace should a wearer ever fall in battle. When they take to the field equipped with their hulking Terminator armor, adorned with the fluttering holy scripts, the Sword Brethren are a truly inspiring sight against which few enemies can stand against. To fight in Terminator armor requires rigorous training, and once he is ready, a Sword Brethren Terminator is expected to perform above and beyond his brethren, acting as an example to the rest of his chapter. Squads of Sword Brethren Terminators are often employed in boarding actions, or where the fighting is going to be close and bloody. Terminators can also be equipped with a variety of weaponry that allow them to fight at longer ranges, but it is for brutal close combat assaults that the Terminator armor is primarily designed, and for which the Black Templars favor it. Upon the death of a marshal, it is from the Sword Brethren that his replacement will come, and only the best and bravest are worthy of receiving this great honor. Those sword brethren who aspire to command rank face one another in a series of grueling ritual combats, during which all who would contest the right to lead the crusade will battle one another with various weapons, as well as pitting their strategic and tactical prowess against one another. The exact form of the combat may vary, from unarmed wrestling to feats of endurance that will kill any man other than an Astarte, and many rounds may be fought until a single winner emerges, bloody but victorious. Even then, however, the victor's right to assume the rank of a marshal must be confirmed by the High Marshal or the Chapter Master of the Black Templars, although in practice it is most unlikely to be withheld. This tradition, which is codified in the chapter's dogma and said to date back to the earliest of times, ensures that only those who truly desire command rank ever attain it, and it also guarantees that the succession of a rank of High Marshal is available only to the best warriors in the entire chapter, for it is from the ranks of the marshals that the chapter master is chosen. Upon approval by the High Marshal, the sword brethren of the newly inducted Marshals Fighting Company swear new oaths of loyalty to the winner. Larger crusades are broken down into a number of fighting companies, each led by a sword brethren, afforded the title of Castellan. In this instance, the Castellans are essentially serving as the equivalent of a company captain in a codex-compliant chapter. And now I want to take a look at the Iron Hands, but not just one elite unit that they possess, but multiple. Because the Grey Knight Space Marine chapter is so different than most Space Marine chapters, it's easy to forget that the Grey Knights are actually Adeptus Astartes. Their gene seed might come from the Emperor, but at the end of the day, they're still some type of Space Marine chapter. However, most roles and ranks within this chapter are very unique, and they're very specific to demon hunting or killing the Psyker. The following are two examples of Space Marine ranks that exist in most Codex Astarte compliant chapters. However, within the Grey Knights, these roles truly exemplify why the Grey Knights are so good at demon hunting. First is the Chaplain, and then we're going to get into the Brotherhood Champion. Grey Knights Chaplains act in a similar role to those of the other chapters, by serving as the spiritual leaders of their fellow battle brothers. However, the challenges facing a chaplain of the Grey Knights are very unique. The rigors of serving in the Grey Knights can be sometimes daunting, for the life of a Grey Knight is one of sacrifice and duty as they face the worst horrors of the warp. They will never know peace or respite, for their war is an eternal one, fighting against the vile demons of chaos. Over the many centuries of facing such malefic creatures, a battle brother will lose many comrades should he survive the countless trials and struggles against his demonic foes. Even the Grey Knights can have their faith tested, overcome by the nearly overwhelming sadness and impotent rage as he loses close comrades and commanders. Space Marines are extraordinary men, Space Marine chaplains even more so, and a chaplain of the Grey Knights is a rare specimen indeed, and the chapter has precious few. A Grey Knight's chaplain must minister to the spiritual needs of soldiers destined to fight the most horrible foes. The men of their flock constantly look at the warp and hear the whispers of demons, and yet thanks to the Grey Knight chaplain and those who have preceded him, not one Grey Knight has ever been corrupted by the arch-enemy. But sometimes there is doubt, especially in regards to the seemingly futile of the Inquisition's endless struggle against chaos, and the corruptible nature of mankind that allows the arch-enemy eternal purchase on the human soul. A Grey Knight never doubts the righteousness of his cause, for fighting a demon is not a gesture of futility. They believe it to be a true and righteous purpose, for they have seen the result of the demon's depravity. But the fight is only half the battle, for the demon is one manifestation of the archenemy, and its violence is but one weapon of the warp. The Inquisition battles the plans of chaos, just as the Grey Knights battle its soldiers. But sometimes, even the Inquisitors can fall to the will of the ruinous powers. Over the millennia, many Inquisitors have been lost to the temptations of chaos, though a Grey Knight knows he should never speak of such a thing. Sometimes there are renegades who hide themselves amongst the Ordos. No one ever knows how many heretics are wearing the Inquisitorial rosette. There could possibly even be some within the Ordo Malleus that direct the Grey Knights. A Grey Knight battle brother knows it is not his place and leaves the thinking about such matters to the Inquisition. But how could they trust them if they delve so deeply into the corruption of chaos? Sometimes battle brothers question if the battle against the corruption of chaos could ever be won. A Grey Knight's chaplain is always there to ensure their troubled battle brothers and ensure that any doubt is stomped out. for during their centuries of service, they have led the Grey Knights through every trial of the mind that chaos could ever inflict upon them. The arch-enemy's atrocities know no bounds, and only men like the Grey Knights could ever stop the insidious crimes of chaos. In a Battle Brothers moment of doubt, all they have to do is reflect on the fact that the Emperor continuously sends the Grey Knights to the bloodiest battlefields of the Imperium. This is no mere coincidence. By throwing themselves into those battles and butchering the demons, they would see the forces of chaos broken and fleeing. A Battle Brother has to take these victories and immerse themselves in them, letting victory blot out everything else. By glorifying in it, all doubt would vanish. The enemy made a grave mistake in bringing the fight to them, for the Grey Knights would drive all foes of mankind before them. All Grey Knights use psychers, while most Space Marine chapters made use of such psychers in the librarium. Only the Grey Knights require psychic potential from all their recruits. This is what makes the Grey Knights capable of fighting the demons, for demons' most potent weapons threaten the soul itself. Demons bring with them mortal corruption, and fighting them exposes a Grey Knight to this corruption, and thus they are trained to resist it, taught prayers of willpower so potent they can drive some recruits mad. The Grey Knight's power armor is filled with sigils against the powers of the warp, the same arcane symbols of protection tattooed on their skins so that their bodies are shielded against corruption. A neophyte is taught in the very early stages of his training to imprison his soul in a cage of faith and contempt for chaos, where no demons could reach it. It is the only weapon a demon truly fears, an incorruptible mind. The mere existence of the Grey Knights is a victory of sorts against chaos. Grey Knights are constantly exposed to the horrible truths about the true threat of the demon lurking just beyond the circle of the Emperor's light. They witness sights that would shake the faith of an ordinary space marine to their very foundation. A Grey Knight's chaplain must always stand ready to renew a Battle Brother's devotion when it falters, to remind him of his duty and his vows when hope seems lost. Their stern demeanor and critical eye watches over every action of the Battle Brothers, from his initiation to the last breath in his service to the Emperor, ever alert of signs of slacking zeal or any wavering in belief. Above all, Grey Knight chaplains remind their fellow Battle Brothers to honor and keep their faith with the Emperor. Young neophytes must also be monitored and indoctrinated as they progress towards becoming a full Battle Brother. Grey Knight chaplains are treated with awed respect by their Battle Brothers, and like many chapters, it falls to them to choose which aspirant will undertake training to become an Astartes. During the trials of new aspirants, the chaplains are the ones who incorporate the culture and values of the chapter into them, as well as weeding out the spiritual weak and faithless individuals they find unworthy to become Grey Knights. The development and guidance of such superhuman warriors is only entrusted to the wisest and fiercest members of the chapter, mighty heroes who have demonstrated their own enduring devotion and uncompromising zeal on countless occasions. Chaplains are renowned for their sense of duty and responsibility to their Battle Brothers, knowing that only through unshakable faith can a Space Marine stand firm against the darkness rampant across the galaxy and in every human heart. One of the most notable Grey Knight chaplains was Chaplain Duradin, a veteran Grey Knight that always wore an enormous suit of Terminator armor when seeing to the chapter's spiritual health. One arm was painted a glossy black to signify his office as chaplain, and the rest was the traditional gunmetal gray of the Grey Knights. Durandon wore the same pair of ornate lightning claws that had been passed down from chaplain to chaplain since the chapter's earliest days. Aside from his Crozius Arcanum, Chaplain Durandon always carried the Libra Demonica, an enduring symbol of the Grey Knight's devotion to his mission, and contained the cardinal tenets of lore gathered from the dark knowledge caged within the Segmentum Sanctorum's walls. Every Grey Knight carried a copy of the Libra Demonica in a ceramite case on his breastplate, but Durandon carried it in hand. These gnarled tomes contain the chapter's rites of battle and detail the traditional duties of every Grey Knight's rank. The books themselves are also potent psychic talismans in their own right, with pages illuminated in silver and bound to a spine carved from the high bone of a martyred Imperial saint. A Grey Knight Brotherhood champion is a specialist rank unique to the Grey Knight Space Marine chapter. These Astartes champions stand at the forefront of each Grey Knight Brotherhood, a superlative warrior who has forsaken all other martial disciplines to pursue perfection with the blade. A Brotherhood champion holds chief responsibility for the training of newly recruited chapter aspirants, but on the field of battle, his primary role is to act as the brother captain's personal bodyguard. The skill and knowledge of such an officer is not easily replaced, and it is only proper that they receive the foremost protection that the chapter can provide. Each champion therefore stands ready to die in his captain's stead. That said, such a heroic sacrifice is seldom necessary, for only the deadliest or luckiest of his opponents stand any chance of breaking a Brotherhood champion's guard, let alone surviving his vengeful return strike. Should a champion be struck down, it is unwise to count him out of the fight too soon. Upon receiving a mortal wound, a Brotherhood champion unleashes a pulse of psychic energy into his Aegis power armor. One final burst of forbidden magic for one final heroic deed. This dying impulse impels the suit to temporarily reknit any bone, and give the fallen Brotherhood champion the opportunity to strike one last blow for his battle brothers, an attack all the more deadly for its unexpected source. With this last act thus performed, the champion's soul finally passes beyond the veil of real space, his body to be later recovered and interned within the vaults of Anarch on Titan, so he may continue to guard against evil and death as he did in life. Brotherhood champions are protected by the Iron Halo, a halo-shaped ring that is positioned above the head of the wielder, usually mounted on the backpack of a Space Marine's power armor, but sometimes mounted on the back of the armor that protects the Space Marine's neck. The Iron Halo emits a very strong gravitic conversion field around its wearer, which makes his armor even harder to pierce with enemy weapons. In addition, it also provides its users with immense resilience to even the most potent weapons on the battlefield, such as las cannons and missiles of all varieties. The energy shield the Halo generates stands a good chance of deflecting many deadly projectiles that would slay any unprotected Space Marine with ease. They also wield Nemesis Force Swords that are said to be amongst the oldest of the chapter's blades. Force Swords are crafted using arcane magic and complex scientific formulas, and incorporates a power field like all Nemesis Force weapons. The blade is tempered in iron, flecked with shards of silver, and inset with ancient runes of demonic slaying. In contrast to these primitive materials, the haft and hilt of the sword contains advanced Nemesis power field generators. Their balanced grip and nearly indestructible construction makes them perfect for parrying even the attacks of even the most powerful demonic foes.
And that completes the deep dive for today, but there's more chapters and more units. So if you have any suggestions, let me know what they are in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy these videos, and I hope you're subscribed to the channel because we post lore videos every single day. This was Garsh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Put my freedom first, and then